Hey everybody, I'm Erica Carlson with Bricks Real Estate. I am a local realtor bringing you Wright County real estate data along with Hennepin County to a certain degree. I want to share what's going on this week, whether you are looking at purchasing a house in the near future, maybe you have a house and you're just curious or you want to sell it. I think you'll find this information really valuable. And so without further ado, let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to go through this really quickly because I have a special guest from Bell Bank joining us today. And 568 total properties are on the market right now. However, 524 of those don't have any sort of contingencies at this very moment in time. And what is significant about this to you is that this, in the time of my tracking, which goes back to, I think, late December, January, is the most inventory that we have seen in this year. And so that's interesting because if you've been sitting on the sideline in the buying concept, this might be a great time for you to consider looking again. There's people that I watch what they're looking for as well, obviously, because I'm helping them find a house. And I'm just surprised to see, like, maybe not long ago, they had 2 options, and today they have 11 options, which is still keeping this all in perspective. Inventory's down in the scheme of the whole real estate world. However, in our little micro hyper local look, this is your chance to have the most selection if that is important to you. So I just had to make that point because there's one other thing, actually, let me jump to it, that is also going to drive this point home, which is if you look over at the September 27th data, notice that 2.8 showings per listing per week is our average. Now, let's talk about that in English. That means if I'm selling a house, 2 to 3 showings are happening on my property. Now, we've been looking at this data or looking at those numbers for quite a while. Like, we just haven't seen the numbers Hennepin County receives. We just don't have that population, I think, to support the same numbers as Hennepin County. However, if we compare it, Hennepin County is only moving at 3.3, so just a tad faster than Wright County, which is, normally the discrepancy, like in the past, like the spring, was much wider. Right now, it's pretty neutral. And what this means, again, is that you're not going to get that many showings if you are a home seller, which is okay. It doesn't mean it's not going to sell. It just means it's not going to be 10, 20 parties through your house the first day on market. However, there's exceptions because this is the 250 to 500K range. I'm not looking at all price ranges when I give you this particular data. I'm just looking at kind of that typical price point for a lot of people, the majority of people. That's why I pick these prices. So in complementing this data, I just told you, we have the most amount of houses and choices that we've seen this year, coupled with there aren't that many people out there shopping. That's what makes this time fantastic for you to start looking in a serious way. I know interest rates are high. I know that's what's holding people back. But there are these opportunities. So I had to put that big but out there. While I'm on this screen, notice that the days on market, both the average and median, haven't changed that much. So, 2.5 to 4.5 weeks is probably what it would take to sell a house. So again, if you're home shopping and that house is hitting 30 days, doesn't mean it's been a long time. That's actually just the average amount of time at this point. Jumping back to this screen, pending stayed about the same. However, closings dropped quite a bit from 234 to 213. I think that there's not much to discern from that information. I mean, closings, if you think about it, they went under contract 30, maybe 60, maybe 90 days ago. We knew there was a slowing. So of course the closings are slowing down, and we're seeing that week over week, that slow decline, that less people are closing because less people are shopping for houses. It all ties together as one. Not spending too much time on absorption rate. This is saying that it's a seller's market, not as much of a seller's market as it was the last 2 years. However, seller's market, but I think that this data is deceiving. Number one, because I can't pull it for this month. I can't pull, like, it just does. The way the program works is it doesn't give me this data faster. So I look at other things to give you better information. So if we're looking at last month, because notice on the screen it says August, and again, it's only 250 to 500K range. it's saying we're in a seller's market. However, I just told you there's not a lot of buyers out there and inventory is higher than typical. So we're definitely in that equal pushing into that buyer's market concept. If you think I'm, kind of full of it, however, if you go out and shop, you'll feel it. Like I don't think a seller should expect multiple offers. I don't think they should expect a lot of people coming through the house. Again, it's not that it's not going to sell. It's not that it's a bad time to sell a house. And the fact there's still no snow on the ground. So we have to be mindful of that. But it's interesting. It's kind of a dreary day despite the beautiful fall colors. I think that affects people. I think it keeps people from necessarily moving forward with decisions when the weather isn't as welcoming. So we covered that. And then the next step is talking to you about something that I love giving you. So let me share the market report looks like, because every week I tell you, you can grab this information from me if you would like it. There's no strings attached. I have Delano, St. Michael, Rockford, and Buffalo already created. So if you just want those cities, you can, and just jump over to the link. If you're on YouTube, it might be below. And if you're on Facebook, it might be above. So wherever you're seeing this video, there's a link to help you sign up for a market report. And just to give you an idea of what it looks like, this one's for Buffalo. It's not the entire city. It was just a selection. You'll get the average list price. You'll get an idea of how hot the market is. Take it with a little bit of grain of salt. I mean, this is an automated program giving you average days. I mean, this is just a little bit more local than what I'm giving you, because I'm speaking to, well, I don't honestly know how far the reach is for this video. So I'm assuming you're in the Wright County area if you're watching. What I like about this is that it's interactive. So if you just wanted to know what your neighbor sold, like here, they wanted 365, they got 350. So you could look through and start seeing market trends if you were thinking about selling, or again, if you're buying, wouldn't it be nice to know if people are getting under asking price? And I can tell you, because we were just talking about data, we're looking, inspections are there, getting some concessions on, getting some help with your closing costs is back. That's what happens as we lean towards that buyer's market. And then, of course, we've got pendings. So if you just wanted to know, like, okay, that house isn't available or it's under contract. And then if you're a home buyer, you could even use this to kind of shop an area. However, it's very particular. Like this one is just grabbing this part of Buffalo. So I can set this up whether you have an investment property, whether it's a personal property, maybe your parents are thinking about selling and they're going to need your help and you want to get a better idea of like what the Plymouth market's like, or Arden Hills, or where. It doesn't have to be for Wright County by any means. I'm just kind of assuming that that's who I'm speaking to. So just click the link to get this information. Okay, so I have Molly Zimmerman here from Bell Bank. And Molly, I was doing the research I always do every single week, and I'm getting things sent to me. And one of the things I wanted to share with you this week as my colleague is this results from the Zillow Consumer Housing Trends Report, which was kind of interesting. And I thought, I know I didn't give you any sort of heads up to see this, but it is like there's some things here that I think are kind of remarkable. So I took screenshots because if I shared this with everybody, if I can get the screen to move, of course, it's just too long. So we're not going to read any of this word for word, but I do have some bullet points and I'm curious, like, kind of like what your thoughts are. And then if you could explain these things, because I thought, well, if people don't know what they are, then this is just such a great platform to fill in these things. And so the very first one is 21% of the people that were surveyed think a pre-approval is just having enough money for a down payment. I'm kind of surprised, and I'm kind of like, okay. I mean, I just don't know that people quite understand why we ask them to get pre-approved. Does that surprise you?
That does surprise me. I mean, in looking at that, it's the difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval. There's a big difference between the two. So, I mean, it is kind of shocking.
Yes. And so that's point number 2. 18% of the people believe that the pre-approval and pre-qual are the same, which I think is on my screen. And then there's another 15% that say they don't even know what this is talking about. So I thought, I know different lenders do seem to like blend these terms together, which I don't think is helping the industry. I think it'd be nice if like we all had collectively could say, this is a pre-qual and this is a pre-approval. So if they came to Bell, how would you define that for a future client?
A great question. If I talk to a buyer and they've had a pre-qualification, let's just say with another institution, to me, a pre-qual is more if you are just having that initial like high level discussion. You
Yep.
might say, hey, this is my income, these are my debts, this is my budget. But at that point, we're not pulling credit, we're not collecting financials, we're not actually running the file through the automated underwriting system.
Yep.
The pre-approval is that step where you're actually applying, and that holds a lot more weight than a pre-qual would because we've done our due diligence. We're pulling credit, we're reviewing financials, we're making sure that you actually truly fit the guidelines of the product that we're looking at versus just giving a very general statement.
And it's really hard, or I'm thinking both from like the listing agent's point of view and the buyer's agent, like the pre-qual always just feels like this is nice. It doesn't feel like enough. Like and not to get too into industry terms, but like I want them more underwritten or like what we call going through DU. And again, I'm trying to pull apart and like I want the pre-approval as a listing agent because I know this person has been more vetted than somebody who's done pre-qual. And some companies, the pre-qualification is so generic that it actually makes me nervous when I'm helping sellers sell properties. It's like, this isn't enough information to know that the transaction isn't going to go sideways.
Right. I mean, and I think a pre-qual is more like a buyer telling me their information, whereas, I mean, as a lender, we might actually look at income a little bit different than a buyer sees their income as, you know, base plus commission, but there's rules to using commission income. So, I mean, we're doing that deeper dive just to make sure you don't have issues when you actually do find a property and you're shopping. We don't want that to fall apart at that point.
Yeah, it's for everybody's best interest that we go further down the path than just, this is what I said is true, because there's more. I mean, there just seems like there's so much misunderstanding. Like I'll have people say, well, this is my credit score. And it's like, but that's not your DTI, which is your debt to income. That doesn't take into account to, are you self-employed? Are you a W-2 employee? There's just a little bit more than just your credit score. And going back to like, I'm really surprised, like people associate pre-approval to down payment. I don't even know like where they're coming up with that correlation. Was there an advertise, like do you have any idea where people would think that?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I think sometimes people just have that thought, like if I have the money and I'm already making my rental payment at X amount per month, I should be pre-approved for a mortgage. But, again, mortgage guidelines are a lot different than lending guidelines on other products. So it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, I hear that. I definitely have had people say, well, I can qualify for a car. And I'm like, well, if a car is 30 to 60,000, it's still just a portion of what a house is. So again, it's not an apples comparison. We need you to actually take that step. And I'm just also thinking there's a misperception that like getting pre-approved is harder than it is. And I'm always telling people like, it's a 5-minute process. You push the button online. If like they're very, like our folks that don't really want to talk on the phone, they don't have to talk to you. They literally could do all this on the internet before a human, because you don't call right until after they actually apply online, or am I?
A lot of communication I would say is via email up front or texting. And then, I'm always throwing out, let's connect by phone. Let's talk about your questions. Let's talk about numbers, but it's really up to the person. If you're more comfortable via email, I mean, we can make that work as well.
Yeah. So if it's like, I'll hear people use time, and when we're all busy, it's time, but we also don't have the correct information to really get started. How do we know like what to even shop for when we're just kind of using online mortgage calculators? And so a big question I'll say, and I try not to be rude, I don't want it to be rude, which is, how are we coming up with this budget if we've never talked to anybody about financing? It makes me, so anyway, I guess neither of us know where people are connecting the down payment, but I would encourage people to talk to a professional, because What is it? USDA 0% down. Is there still a conventional program with 1% down, or am I mistaken about that?
I mean, I think it depends on the lender. We have 3% down paired with 2% down. So yes, I mean, it's a true 1% down, but you've got to meet the qualifications for the program. So not everybody fits into that.
That's true.
That profile. Yeah.
I don't want to be too generic there. Okay, so the next point, and I think I'm going to change the screen, and I see it might be getting cut off for people, but the main part here is that 58% said they've been shopping for at least 6 months. And I just think that's interesting because I just don't feel like when I meet somebody, it's a 6-month process. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm wondering if that statistic maybe ties into the beginning where they start online shopping more so than actually reaching out to a real estate agent. I do feel like a lot of buyers that I connect with have done that online digging and maybe have watched, houses pop up, but maybe the serious buying is not 6 months, but it's the overall process.
Yeah, so it's interesting for me to know. I mean, because it does say below there, more likely to report searching for at least 6 months. So searching, yeah. I don't think they mean like face-to-face time. And I do feel sad, like when people tell me after like 1 week of house shopping in real life that they're exhausted. It's like, I think then maybe that's like an emotional component to kind of pull apart that like it is an emotional decision to buy a personal property, but it is the weight you're giving the process. Like you don't have to make it that heavy or be that intense about the process. Maybe, take a break. And
I would agree.
Believe there's a house out, like there's always going to be another house coming on the market.
Correct. And I still feel like, I mean, I don't know if you feel the same, Erica, but like if I've got a buyer who is completely sad that they maybe missed out on what they thought was their dream home, and then suddenly the next property pops up and it's even more exciting than the last one. So I think it all comes together if you just give it some time and patience.
I think so too. I think it's trusting the process a little bit more. Well, these last 2 points might be a little bit more in the real, like on my side of things. It says 64% say an extra room for a home office is very or extremely important, which I think came out of COVID, right? Like a lot of people can work from home. I mean, you and I could work from home if we prefer to. And so that's branched out to a lot of places. So I just wanted to use that opportunity to tell sellers to be mindful of how they're presenting their house. I'm going to go on a little bit of a bird walk here. I'm a little surprised when I show houses, like how rigid people can be about the thinking of space. And I don't know if you've heard this before or not, Molly, but like if I show a bedroom and it's shown as an office, sometimes I feel like I have to explain. And I feel kind of rude, like when I say this, but I have to be like, this is a bedroom, even though it's being presented as an office. So sellers, don't underestimate that. If you're thinking about selling, like you really have, like if it's I hate to say supposed to be a dining room, then it should kind of go back to being a dining room. However, in this case, this data is showing people are looking for office. So maybe sacrificing a bedroom to show people the office component sounds like just looking at those numbers on the screen, there's a demand there. So I would think about that. And then I turned it off, but I'll put it back on, I guess. The last one was 21% of buyers said they will hire an agent, and then 10% said they won't. And I think my last note on that is just remembering to anybody listening to us today, like it's not costing you more money to have representation. It doesn't cost you money to get a pre-approval. So why not take advantages of services that are available right now? It just streamlines the process, makes it easier than hopping around from open house to open house or calling every single listing agent. There's a bigger conversation here because there's some big lawsuits going on, and we'll see how that affects buyers agents. And maybe we'll talk about that another time, Molly. But for right now, the way things are, the commission is built into the overall structure of the deal, and calling the listing agent directly is not going to save you money. That person is still going to make that, whether you have a representative or you have somebody else. So
I would agree. I always my buyers have their own representation. I think it's very, very important. to protect them and their process and negotiate and fight for them, but also I think the legal pieces of it in real estate.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, to finish up, I think it's like going to court and the other attorney's your attorney. If
Mhm.
you can avoid that, which is called dual agency in Minnesota, you can avoid it. I mean, you don't have to sign up. And I just think it's a misperception of saving money. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something else. Somebody can inform me someday of why else they would choose to go at this on their own. But for this moment in time, the way things work in the United States is it probably is easier just to have your own agent for both of those reasons. So there's way more to this. If anybody that's watching us wants the full link to the whole report, and Molly, I'll probably send it to you later because there's like way more. It's really interesting. Yes, it's just being done by Zillow, but there's something in there that would probably, be interesting to other people. So I can link that out if somebody asks for it. But in conclusion, thank you for joining me today, Molly.
Yeah, thank you.
I will be back next week. Whether you want to subscribe on YouTube or follow along on my Facebook page, that would be great. If you go to iheartmplshomes.com, you can start your home search. You can learn more about me, learn more about real estate. I would love for you to use this as a local resource, and I'm always available if you have real estate questions or want to move forward with something. That would be fantastic.